So let's talk about anxiety. We're going to break down a really powerful idea from Nick Trenton's work, which is this. What if anxiety isn't some random storm that just hits you out of nowhere? What if it's more like an internal habit of the mind? And, the best part about habits is that they can be understood, they can be interrupted, and most importantly, they can be rewired. This explainer, well, it's your guide to doing exactly that. This quote, man, it really gets to the heart of the problem, doesn't it? The noisy brain. It's that constant nagging loop of worries, what ifs, and worst case scenarios playing on repeat. This internal noise, it turns life from this wide open field of opportunity into a minefield, where every single step feels risky. Our goal here is to turn down that volume so you can see the world and all its possibilities clearly again. All right, here's our roadmap for this journey. First, we'll redefine our relationship with anxiety and the enemy within. Then we're going to pop the hood on the overthinking machine to see why our brains even do this. After that, we'll get super practical with your first response toolkit. From there, we'll explore some advanced mind rewiring techniques. And finally, we'll bring it all together, shifting our perspective from fighting an enemy to, well, guiding an ally. Okay, first things first, we've got to tackle the enemy within. And that title, it's really a challenge to how we usually think about this stuff. For so long, we've treated anxiety like it's some kind of invader, right? Something that happens to us. This section is all about flipping that script and realizing the pattern isn't out there, it's inside our own minds. This is the crucial point right here. We're not just aiming for some coping mechanisms or better defenses. No, the goal is way more ambitious than that. It's about fundamentally changing our mental habits and literally rewiring the pathways in our brain that lead to feeling so overwhelmed. It's the difference between being a passenger in your own mind and actually taking the wheel. So look, before you can fix a machine, you've got to understand how it works. Our brain can definitely feel like a runaway overthinking machine, but its behavior isn't random. There are very clear biological and environmental reasons it gets stuck in these worry cycles. Demystifying this process is absolutely the key to managing it. Okay, so at the very root of all of this is our ancient survival hardware, the fight or flight response. Deep inside your brain, the amygdala is basically your personal alarm system. Now, when it perceives a threat, and it doesn't care if it's a tiger in the jungle or a critical email from your boss, it floods your body with adrenaline and cortisol. The problem is, this system was designed for short-term life or death survival, not for the chronic, low-grade stress of modern life. It's just misfiring. This really breaks down the why into two key areas. On one side, you've got your intrinsic factors. That's the genetic hardware you're born with. You can think of this like the soil. Then, on the other side, you have extrinsic factors, all the pressures of daily life that act like the sun and the rain. Things like workplace stress or social pressure. They're the triggers that cause that underlying predisposition to actually grow into anxiety. Now, this right here, this is one of the most important reframes in all of Trenton's work. Seriously, let this sink in. We usually think our racing thoughts are what cause our anxiety, but it's often the complete reverse. Our body is already in an agitated fight or flight state, and our brain is just scrambling to create a story to explain that physical feeling. The overthinking, it's a symptom of the agitation, not the cause. And that changes everything about how we approach this. Okay, now we get to the good stuff, the tools you can put into practice, like right now. We've understood the problem, we've seen the mechanics, so this section is your first response toolkit. These are tangible, actionable steps you can use to intervene the very moment you feel that spiral starting. This is the core loop for breaking the cycle. I know it looks simple, but mastering it is incredibly powerful. First, awareness. That's just noticing what's happening without judging yourself for it. Second, and this is the crucial part, the pause, creating that tiny little gap between the anxious feeling and how you usually react. And finally, redirection, consciously choosing what you're going to do next instead of letting anxiety make the choice for you. The foundation of that first step, awareness, is labeling. And this quote just captures the magic of it perfectly. When you're in an anxiety spiral, it feels all-consuming. You think, I am anxious. But by simply labeling it, you create what experts call psychological distance. You shift from I am anxious to I am experiencing the feeling of anxiety. All of a sudden, it's not you. It's just a temporary event that you are observing. So how do you actually do this in the moment? Let's walk through it. First, just tune into your body.
Notice the actual physical sensations. Is it a tight chest, a knot in your stomach, a racing heart? Just observe it. Second, pause and bring a gentle, curious awareness to that feeling. Don't fight it, don't wish it away. Third, breathe slowly and give it a simple name. Just say in your head, this is worry or this is anxiety. And finally, to really create that distance, you can even visualize that word as a separate object, maybe like a cloud just passing by. Each step helps you shift control back to the thoughtful part of your brain.
And this brings us to that pause step and the incredible power of the mind-body connection. Remember how we said overthinking is often a symptom of physical agitation? Well, it works both ways. You can use your body to short-circuit that mental loop. When you consciously slow your breathing, or you deliberately unclench your jaw and drop your shoulders, you are sending a direct, undeniable message to your brain that the threat is gone. It's like a physiological override that your mind is basically forced to follow.
And finally, redirection. Look, this isn't just about distracting yourself. It's about turning your anxious energy into a fact-finding mission. A great tool for this is a thought diary. Instead of just spinning your wheels, you get curious. You ask productive questions. What was happening right before this feeling started? What parts of this are actually in my control? And most importantly, what's one small action I can take right now? This turns that vague, scary worry into a concrete, solvable problem. All right, we have totally covered the first response basics. Now let's move on and expand our arsenal with some more advanced techniques. These are for creating more permanent change. Think of these as the tools you use not just in a crisis, but to actively rewire your brain over time for some real, lasting peace. The source material is built around this comprehensive toolkit of 29 different techniques. Now, we can't cover all of them here, but that number itself is really important. It shows you that there isn't just one single magic bullet. Instead, there's a rich arsenal of strategies you can draw from to find out what really works for you. And those techniques, they fall into several categories. You've got cognitive tools for changing your thoughts, behavioral tools for changing your actions, physical interventions that use that mind-body link we talked about, and even lifestyle changes that alter your environment. A truly effective approach means working on all these fronts, not just putting all your eggs in one basket. This leads to a really fascinating and, honestly, kind of counterintuitive idea. Can you actually act your way into a different emotional state? Well, the behavioral approach says a resounding yes. Sometimes changing your actions is the most direct path to changing how you feel. Here are just a few examples of these more advanced tools. Let's take them one by one. First, there's role-playing, where you literally rehearse a tough conversation in a safe space. This builds muscle memory and confidence. Then you've got this cool one, creating an alter ego, a calmer, more confident version of yourself you can mentally step into before a stressful meeting. I know it sounds a little strange, but it creates this amazing buffer. There's also controlling your mental imagery, consciously swapping out those disaster movies in your head with calm, peaceful ones. And this last one is super powerful, thought reframing. The physical feelings of anxiety and excitement, they're nearly identical. That racing heart, the butterflies. By simply telling yourself, I'm not anxious, I'm excited, you can completely transform the experience. And all of this brings us to our final and maybe most important section, moving from seeing anxiety as an enemy to treating it as an ally. This is the ultimate mindset shift. You see, the whole battle metaphor, it's useful to start, but it has its limits. The true goal is something much more profound. This quote just perfectly captures the entire journey. That noisy brain, the overthinking machine, that's what makes us our own enemy. But every single tool and technique we've discussed today is about flipping that script. It's about using your own awareness, your own body, and your own mind to become your greatest champion in the pursuit of calm. And this is such a crucial distinction to make. The goal is not to achieve some enlightened state where you have zero anxiety. That's not realistic. And honestly, a little bit of anxiety can even be healthy. It's what motivates you to prepare for a big presentation. The real goal is mastery. It's about building a toolbox that becomes so familiar that when anxiety shows up, you don't panic. You see it, you understand it, and you know exactly which tool to grab to keep it from taking the driver's seat. Okay, we have covered a lot, from the biology of fight or flight to the practical steps of labeling your emotions. But knowledge is only potential power. Action is where the real change happens. So the final question is for you. Looking back at everything we've covered, that awareness, pause, redirect cycle, the thought diary, or even just the simple active breathing, which one single tool will you commit to trying today? That one small choice, that's the first step in rewiring your brain and reclaiming your peace.